Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. God has hidden unlimited treasures in His Word. Every time we open it, we can discover a new treasure, or admire an old one. What will we find today? Let's dig in. Here's Carla Early with Treasure Hunt in the Word.
In those days there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. That's how Judges ends. Pretty chaotic. The book of Samuel picks up where the book of Judges leaves off. A few chapters in, the Philistines attacked, and not only conquered Israel, but stole the Ark of the Covenant, which they thought was Israel's God. Of course, it really just represented God, but it wasn't the Philistines to keep. To convince them to give it back, God dismembered the statue of their god Dagon. They found it face down in the dirt before the ark, with its head and hands cut off. Each town they sent the ark to was plagued with tumors and mice. In their panic, they sent it back to Israel, with gifts inside, on a cart pulled by cows. The cows wandered to Beth-Shemesh. Beth-Shemesh was a Levitical city, mostly priests, but they farmed as well. Needless to say, they were overjoyed at the return of the ark. Now, if you've read God's specifics about the ark, and these guys had, they were priests, you'd know that it was only to be carried by priests using poles, and it's never to be touched. Of course, the Philistines hadn't known that, so it was only by the grace of God that they hadn't been struck down. The men of Beth-Shemesh offered burnt offerings and sacrifices, using the wood from the cart and the cows. All was going well at the celebration of the ark's return, until some of the men got curious. What's in that ark anyway? So these men, who knew they weren't supposed to touch the ark or open it, but apparently hadn't learned the wisdom of curiosity kills the cat, looked into the ark. In Numbers 4:20, God had specified to Aaron and his sons not to look at holy things lest they die. So what were these guys thinking? Well, they probably thought it wasn't too big of a deal. It was just a look. Way bigger sins were going on in the nation as the people were doing right in their own eyes. Likely they rationalized their sin before they did it. As do we. It's just a small lie, a fib, really. Or looking at that swimsuit model isn't nearly as bad as my friend who's cheating on his wife. Or who's going to notice this missing? No one cares. Well, we mustn't fool ourselves. There's no such thing as a small lie. Lust is the same thing as adultery. And God notices. God cares. If you know better, if your conscience says no and you argue, then you know it's a sin. And God doesn't let sin slide. In this case, their little sin got them death, as all sin deserves. 1 Samuel 6:19 says, "But God struck down some of the inhabitants of Beth-Shemesh, putting 70 of them to death because they looked into the ark of the Lord." As His children, God puts His Holy Spirit in our hearts so we know right from wrong. He disciplines us as our Father. Like Proverbs 13:24 says, "Those who spare the rod hate their children. Those who love their children care enough to discipline them." Not that God will strike you dead, but if you are His child, you won't get away with anything. Not in the long run. A group of my friends in college found that out the hard way. They broke dorm rules all the time and kept inviting me to. I kept telling them if I participated, we'd get caught. And sure enough, when I finally gave in and participated, we got caught by the police. Needless to say, they never asked me again. Because I was a child of God, my Father wouldn't let me get away with it. And I thank Him for that. God always sees, and He doesn't let sin slide. He shouldn't. He's our Father.
As always, we'd love to hear from you. If you'd like to share a treasure, support this ministry, or get Carla to speak at an event, please contact us at treasurehuntintheword@gmail.com. You can listen to other episodes on our website, which you can find in the description below. Thanks for listening, and have a great day.